We just finished making a timeline on the fascist leaders of Germany and Italy and how Hitler and Mussolini gained power. And this was a brief overview of who Hitler was and how he ended up gaining power and the policies that he implemented. But I want to spend a little more time looking at Hitler's beliefs on a master race and what he does as Fuhrer when he's in power and how those ideas are actually implemented into the lives of the people and what he does with the economy. So let's get in a little more detail with Hitler. The one thing that we talked about in class is the idea of Hitler and the master race, the Aryan race. That is, there is a group of people called the Aryans, Northern European descent, and these people are the best of the best. You would see that Hitler would believe that they're the most intelligent, they're most athletic. They are the ones that do not hold negative genes that would cause diseases, that would cause birth defects, that would cause mental retardation. And Hitler had this idea of this master race, but we learned that it wasn't started in Germany. Hitler didn't come up with it. But in fact, it was the concept of a white-haired or blonde-haired, white-skinned, blue-eyed master race originated in the United States, and it really was implemented in a large number of states. It was really used the most in California, where we saw 60,000 people were sterilized, and the total of states that adopted it was 27 states enacted a eugenics program. The eugenics program, as if you were in class, you know, is the idea that everything is determined by your genes. Even if you're a criminal, that was determined by your genes. So if a criminal has a kid, that kid's going to become a criminal. He has that genetic disposition in him. So the United States, under Rockefeller, Carnegie institutions, and the scientific community in Stanford, Harvard, you name it, all believed that we should stop the unwanted populations from having children, people in welfare, people that had disabilities, people that were not part of this white-haired, white-skinned, blonde-haired, blue-eyed master race should be sterilized, or they should be segregated, or they should be kicked out. There's even cases of people in the eugenics program who have done murder. They've killed newborn babies because they did not fit. They were looked at as weak, and they thought it would be a burden to the society. If you want to look at a book that really talks about this in a lot more detail, it's Edwin Black's War Against the Weak, and again, it's all called eugenics, this idea of creating this master race through the idea that genes determine everything, and through the scientific program. So how did Hitler take this American idea? How do we know this? Well, in the book Mein Kampf, he actually even uses the words. He says, "I have studied with great interest the laws of several American states concerning the prevention of reproduction by people who would be of no value or be injurious to the racial stock." He actually calls his Bible The Passing of the Great Race by American eugenic leader Madison Grant. Nazis and Americans worked closely together. In fact, Operation Paperclip was an operation to bring back Nazi scientists as refuge to America during the war, and one Nazi scientist, his name was Strughold, they actually named a library after him at Ohio State University and made a mural of him there. In the 1990s, they found this out and were greatly embarrassed by this. But there was a strong connection well before Hitler came into power of this idea of creating the master race, and I want you to know Hitler did not come up with that. If you see over here, these are all the states with the diagonal lines that enacted segregation, sterilizations, and things like that. And the black are states that were at the time of 1935 currently trying to make laws. Pennsylvania blocked their sterilization law. The governor blocked it. In the great state of Pennsylvania, you would expect them to block something like that. PA. Okay, so again, California was the one that did it the most, 60,000. Here you see it is starting to become popular. We talked about why in the world do Americans not know about this stuff. It is starting to become popular. It is starting to have signs that talk about this stuff. Okay, so that's a little more detail on Hitler, and obviously the Jews didn't fit this Aryan race. Only the blonde-haired, blue-eyed master Nordic, or they would call it Aryan race, And as you know, Hitler doesn't have blue eyes, blonde hair, that look that people wanted so much. But if you basically had Northern European descent, that was good enough for Hitler. Okay, let's talk about, now that he gains power, Nazi Party becomes the largest party in 1932. The Fuhrer becomes supreme. Hitler becomes the leader. He's elected into power. But once he's elected into power and his parliament's put into power, elected into power, he actually becomes chancellor. Not through elections. They give him the chancellorship, but his Nazi party is elected into power. And once he is able with the party to get complete power, they shut down all elections. And he is known as the leader. He is known as the Fuhrer. And we looked at the whole idea. How did he gain power? He promised two things. He promised bread and work. And we're going to see if he delivers with that bread and work. But in the meantime, he's going to censor everyone that is seen as a threat. And he creates all these programs to make the Nazi Party, the Nazis, look outstanding. He creates the Hitler Youth. You can see these are boys here joining the Hitler Youth. I believe it was mandatory to join the Hitler Youth. I'm not 100% sure on that. If you question Hitler, if you would not conform, we talked about conformity in the Solomon Asch experiment, how people conform because they naturally don't want to stand out, they want to fit in. But if you did stand out and you question Hitler and the Nazi movement, he created his organization called the SS. I want you to remember this SS because in World War II, the SS are going to be the ones going around and collecting the Jews. It's not going to be the German army, it's going to be the SS. He also bans books. Here you can see there's a book burning right here. Any book that was written by a Jew or sympathetic to Jewish beliefs was burned. We talked about how the Old Testament in the Bible wasn't even allowed, and that Hitler went after that because, of course, the Old Testament was written by Jews. He also closes elections. No more elections that are allowed under Hitler and his power. So the Fuhrer is supreme. He does all these different things. He has complete control. Now, is he going to deliver? And if you looked at the statistics, one more thing, actually, I forgot about this. Dachau is also created. So if you did not stand in line, if you did not conform, if you did not listen to the elementary school textbooks that said how evil the Jews were, and you kept on saying, no, Hitler's a joke, Hitler's a joke, I'm not going to follow this stuff, I have friends that are Jews, and I'm not going to believe in Hitler stuff, and I'm going to be vocal about it. He would send you to a concentration camp called Dachau. Dachau is a great example of this. This is the first one that was made. I believe it's the first one made. It's the first major one. It was made in 1933, and it ends when Americans liberated in 1945. But thousands were sent to Dachau, thousands of religious leaders, thousands of people that questioned Adolf Hitler. This is right outside of Munich. You can see work makes you free. You were forced to go in here, and you're forced to do labor, forced labor in here. And you can see people did see these camps. That is, people did see Dachau. There's houses. I was at Dachau, and there's houses right on the other side of this. But people didn't know for sure 100% what was going on. People were killed. Okay, you would be sentenced to a crime. You would be sent to Dachau. People died in these forced labor camps. People were sent to Dachau to be killed, and they're cremated. So these are the things that Hitler did as Fuhrer. Okay, but so what's going on? How is he able to gain power when he shuts down elections? When he censors everything? You don't have freedom. How is he able to keep power? Because Germany had a democracy before. You think the people would rise up? Well, people were scared, and we talked about when fear kicks in, people are willing to accept anything and try anything new. We talked about how 38% of Americans are for a strong leader that doesn't have to bother with elections. That was from the New York Times. And when people are afraid, they're willing to try anything. And you can see the correlation here. As unemployment goes up, as unemployment gets worse and worse and worse, okay, what ends up happening is the Nazi vote becomes more and more popular. So here are these red boxes. These are the elections that Hitler had. 1924 election, they only had about 3% of the vote. 1927, here we got 3 years later plus, only 3%. But as the unemployment rate goes up, so does the popularity of the Nazi vote. Here you see as the unemployment rate goes up in 32, this is when he becomes chancellor. By 33, the Nazis are going to have complete power. Here you see the Nazis have 45% of the vote. So strong leaders that say, give me the trust and the power and I'll solve your problems, usually end up getting the power and work. That's what's so interesting about the United States. We've never succumbed to fascism. We've always trusted in democracy. So, does he deliver? The unemployment rate at 1932 is technically is about 33%. And will he deliver with these unemployment rates? Well, let's look at the numbers. The unemployment rate drastically goes down when he comes in the office. 1932, it's at 30%. 2 years later, it's at 15%. 2 years later, it's at 8%. 2 years later, it's at 2%. That is miraculous, okay? That it seems like that when 30% unemployment, fast forward it 6 years later, it's to 2% unemployment rate. Hitler looks like a genius. People love Hitler. And a lot of people did love Hitler because he not only brought the unemployment rate down, but he created jobs. Job growth went up. But there is another side to this story that a lot of people don't know, and they think Hitler was a great economic leader. That's not necessarily true. Let's compare this unemployment rate to the United States. Because economies are connected to each other, German economy is connected to the French economy, you can see in 1935 in the United States, what happens to their unemployment rate? Our unemployment rate goes down. By 1945, it's at 3%. Now, Hitler does it quicker, but we know why he's going to do it quicker, because he's going to get ready for war. And those are jobs that are going to be needed to get ready for this war. And our unemployment rate goes down. So Hitler comes in at the exact right time. In every country you see in about 1932 and 1933, you start to see the unemployment rate go down in all of these countries. So it was just a natural economic cycle that caused the unemployment rate to go down. Not so much Hitler. Now, Hitler did do some things. He stopped paying war, and you need to know these things. He stopped paying war reparations. That is money that the German people owed after World War I in the harsh Treaty of Versailles, and the Germans considered it harsh. So he took that money to create jobs. German people were thrilled by that. Government spending went up. He had his own little jobs bill, and in that jobs bill, they created things like the Berlin Olympic Stadium. They created autobahns. They created major government organization programs. But another thing that doesn't mention here, the unemployment rate did go down, but wages went down. So if President Obama wanted to create more jobs, he probably could by lowering the minimum wage. But is that something this country really wants? Adolf Hitler got rid of unions, and he got rid of trade unions, and he got rid of the push for increased wages. So people might get paid $4 instead of previously $6, so that allows more money in the pot so more people could be hired. Rearmament, this is a big thing. 1936. Now the unemployment rate has gone down, but 1936 it keeps going down because jobs were created to build up the army, and you know why they're getting ready to build up the army. Hitler is wanting revenge for World War I, and that is World War II. Now there's some things in here, there's some dark things about this unemployment rate that I want you to know. He doesn't count women as being part of the unemployment rate when he gains power. Well, that's obviously going to drop the unemployment rate. Can you imagine if President Obama said we're not going to count the women looking for jobs? Okay, Hitler thought women should be at home and they should have many, many children to keep the Aryan master race strong and thriving. Women generally accepted this idea, but women were counted on unemployment rate. So was it really this awesome thing that Hitler did? I mean, if I came in to become president of the United States and I said, we're not going to count women anymore, the unemployment rate would drop by half. Is it anything I did? Absolutely not. He also takes opponents and Jews to concentration camps that are questioning him. Well, those people are outside. They're not counted as unemployed. He dismisses Jews from jobs. They're not counted as unemployed. He forces in 1935 thousands of young men into the military service, so they're not counted as unemployed anymore. And he also counts part-time workers as fully employed workers. So he fudges the numbers and fudges the data and deals with those things as well. So does he deliver? In some respects he does. He breaks the Treaty of Versailles and starts doing that, and he's building up the military. So unemployment rate legitimately does go down. So many people are very happy about that. And people are getting bread and work, so people are happy with that. But it's not as great as what he makes it out to be, and that's usually how it works with politics. And you can see in the United States the unemployment rate down as well. We didn't do fascism. We had a democracy, and we saw our unemployment rate go down as well. So hopefully this gives you a better idea. Let me recap real quick. Hitler and the master race, trying to create a supreme race of people, pure German people, pure Aryan people, he would call them. And that idea started with the United States to use eugenics, these scientific programs to create this master race. He uses fear, he uses propaganda to indoctrinate, to influence how people thought, through positive programs he would called Hitler Youth, and negative programs like burning the books. And also he does deliver with the unemployment and the job work as jobs go up. So there it is. 3 key things about Hitler.